Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome back to this, our final session on the premier stage at Wales Tech Week 2023. Our next and final session is sponsored by EY on how fintech is responding to and addressing the cost of living crisis in Wales and beyond. Chairing this session is Alex McLaren, Senior Manager at EY. Alex has been working in the fintech market for almost 10 years and currently leads EY's fintech collaboration activity. Prior to EY, Alex led the Barclays Fintech Accelerator Programme. Alex has a keen interest in fintech as a force for good, playing a leading role in a recent EY and Innovate Finance report on ways fintech can support the cost of living crisis, and also leading a recent fintech hackathon on the same topic. Please give a warm welcome to Alex and his panel.
Hi there. Hi. Thank you for that introduction. So yeah, we're here today to talk about how fintech can help with the cost of living crisis. This is an issue that's still very much facing the United Kingdom. It's a huge problem. In October 2022, we had inflation at 11.1%, the highest it's been in 41 years. At the moment, it's reduced to 6.3%, which is still well ahead of the 2.3% target. And we've seen a real rapid rise in interest rates from around 0 in late 2021 to over 5% today. And it's really impacting the whole of society. And I'm pleased to say that we've got a really strong panel from across fintechs and financial institutions to really debate how fintech can support on this specific topic. So before we go into the questions, I'll let the team introduce themselves. If you could introduce your name, the company, what you do in the company, and why this particular topic is important to you, that'd be great.
Cool. Hi, I'm Jim, CEO and co-founder at Credit Canary. We are an early warning system that allows credit lenders specifically to identify and engage borrowers at risk of missing future credit payments. And, you know, we're in an uncertain time and households are seeing massive pressure. So for us, it's important to do what we do because it helps lenders catch customers early to give them better experiences. And for those customers, gives them the peace of mind to be able to create better outcomes for them and their families.
Hi, my name is Dylan Jones. I'm the CEO of IE Hub. IE Hub is a platform that supports both lenders or creditors and also consumers. So anybody who is in debt, it's pretty much a horrific experience of being in debt and how you communicate with your creditors. So IE Hub is all about making it easier for all consumers to communicate their position with lenders. We also make it better and more efficient for lenders as well, but I'll touch more on that during the session.
Hi, my name's Penny Roberts and I'm a co-founder of Bankability. My drive comes from my son who's dyslexic and autistic, and he's 19 and is terrified of all things money online. So we're building the world's first ever accessibility banking app.
Hi everybody, my name is Jennifer Foster and I work at City within the Documents Technology and Innovation Lab.
Great stuff. So move into the questions, and the first question for the panel is an open question. It's quite a tough one. So how can fintech help to alleviate the cost of living crisis? And anything specific to Wales that you could call out would be great. So why don't we start with Penny? You have the mic.
Okay, no pressure. When we're still currently fundraising to build the MVP for Bankability, but when this app is launched and live, it will help millions of people who currently can't access their finances online to be independent. And at what more crucial time than right now, when things are tight, they need to see where their money is and how they can be wise. And I don't know about you, I'm sure you all use mobile phones and probably banking apps. Imagine not being able to cope with that or understand it. So we'd like to help very much.
Yeah, I think there's a lot that can be done. You know, whether it's a case of building, products that are geared towards customers, and also maybe in the first instance is actually trying to identify customers. From my participation here, I worked with EY within the hackathon on the cost of living to try and understand how we can build products which will help customers and to try and identify vulnerable customers. And I think it's a case of understanding who those customers are, because traditionally vulnerable customers had a specific type, and now with the cost of living that is very broad. It's not just people who are constantly in debt, it hits everybody. So I think institutions can definitely help to create products that are accessible to everybody and to identify those customers who may be at risk.
I think for me, there's probably two sides. There's obviously the consumer side and the lender side. I mean, for the consumer side, I think anybody in debt, it's a horrific experience. It's quite embarrassing. So any technology that can help that embarrassing situation and how they communicate their position to their lenders is of massive help. But likewise for the lenders, they have huge regulatory pressures. Consumer duties just come in, and they're under severe pressure on how they do the right thing for the consumers. On top of that, they've got massive operational costs, and debt volume is only going one way. A number of lenders we've spoken to, they've been forecasting their debts, and they're just focusing it one way, and they're seeing a huge spike in debt later this year. So they can see huge cost challenges coming their way as well. And that's again where kind of the fintech comes in and helps both the lenders and the consumers.
Cool. So just to answer your question a little bit differently, so I think it's important to understand like the impact of the cost of living crisis specifically in the region. And I read some information recently by Citizens Advice Wales, which said that 60% of customers, felt that the rising cost of living was reducing their standard of living, which is crazy. And I think that, now is the time really to kind of make a difference and to make it happen. I agree with a lot of the points that are said about how we can use the data and the technology to make experiences better. But, this is a time where, this isn't a luxury. Like lenders have to change and borrowers have to change. And the shrinking of the credit market is really driving that transition in market.
Thanks, Jim. So moving on to some innovative approaches. So Penny, you've already touched on bankability, but it's all about increasing access for underserved groups. And is there any specific technologies you're using to do that?
Yes, thanks for Alex. Take somebody who might be visually impaired. Right now, they probably use a screen reader, and typical banking apps aren't adapted for the screen reader to do a helpful job. So it'll just randomly say all these words in no particular order, whereas ours will be optimized to make sure the technology out there already does the heavy lifting and actually provides a service rather than just not.
Great stuff. Thank you. And when it comes to actually accessing financial services, Jennifer, coming from a large multinational bank like Citi, what are financial institutions doing to help with inclusion, broadening access to financial offerings?
Well, speaking just from my personal opinion, I think it will go back to the point that I said at the very beginning. I think it will be good for large institutions to actually try and identify who those customers are and to provide some sort of transparency. But then at the same time, I think this is where collaboration will definitely come into it. Institutions should be able to talk with each other to try and help the customer, because especially with the new customer duty charter, we have to, institutions really have to try and do what they can to help their customers and make sure that they don't fall into a really negative situation. So I would say that in my personal opinion, if they're able to firstly identify who these customers are, and there has to be a level of transparency from the customer because of that, but also to work with other organisations to see how they can best serve them as well. I would say that's definitely something that is should be done.
Can I just add to that as well? I think trust is a huge thing as well. We've heard the word collaboration here. We're starting to do some work with Welsh Water and Citizen Advice in Wales. And again, that comes back to trust. The consumer, when they are in debt, it's knowing where to go. And the fintech obviously can play a key part of that. But sometimes the consumers don't know who we are as a fintech. Whereas if they can relate us to a Welsh Water or a Citizen Advice, that helps as well. So it just shows how important the whole collaboration is, and then fintech being kind of right in the middle of that.
And do we think that the financial institutions, when they're collaborating, do they have access to the data that they need to, drive these insights around, consumer duty and, seeing those vulnerable customers? Maybe Jennifer, back to you. Is there a challenge around the data, and maybe for the other folks on the panel?
Yes, I would say that there is a challenge. Institutions are governed by regulation and, privacy, GDPR. There's only a certain amount of data that can be shared. But of course, there can be ways, and there should be ways, to investigate on how to, get the information out to be able to build those products or to try and serve those customers better. And obviously that's where collaboration comes into it, to be able to achieve that. But also from a technical perspective, there's definitely solutions out there where you can, you're able to unlock the key information from data without revealing personal information. So if we're able to do that, then hopefully build products to be able to identify these individuals, but also how to better serve them, see what trends are there, to understand where they fit in, and how, if they're going to fall into a trap, or if they are in a trap, how to better help them.
Any other comments on the sort of the data side, or yeah, go on, Penny.
Just to say, I think it's fundamental that in essence, they understand what the individual's needs are. I'm not sure they actually know what their needs are. And once that's understood, then they can serve those needs.
Okay, great stuff. So, moving on, we touched on the collaboration point. So, Jim, with Credit Canary, you spend a lot of time collaborating with traditional financial institutions. So, what are they saying about their efforts, and what, in your opinion, could be done?
So personally, when it comes to what we're doing, which is dealing with customers that have problem or serious debt, what we're looking to do is close the information gap that exists between lender and borrower. And that experience is a bit like being an employee and going into work one day and saying, I'm handing in my notice. Your manager is surprised. And what lenders and banks, they fall into the same category. It's reactive. And what we feel that can be done is actually using that data, which is available, to help lenders be really proactive, to present solutions to customers proactively, not necessarily to help them, be better at managing their money, but actually just helping them make better decisions and helping them explain to them what their options are and what their options could be that they may have overlooked along the way. So very much I think the overarching kind of focus for those types of organizations is really helping them move from that reactive to proactive. And then to Dylan's point, really allowing them to reinforce the trust that they've built up with these people over years and years and years, as a way to kind of see them on through the future to hopefully a brighter financial future, because, there is always survivors, and we will all kind of progress and stay on track over time.
Great. And, looking at the kind of impact that we're starting to see on finances, Ellen, you mentioned this earlier about things landing towards the end of this year. But with iHub, you must be seeing the impact firsthand. What are some of the insights that you're seeing around people's finances? And if they've got anything particularly around the wealth area as well, that would be great.
Yeah, there are probably 2 or 3 key areas that have alarmed me in the last 18 months. When I look at our data over the last 18 months, I just look at people where they've just never been in debt before, and it could be a family with two kind of wages coming in, just simply have never been in debt before and have no idea how to deal with that debt. And when you're in when you work in the industry, there's things called primary debt, secondary debt. An average consumer would have no idea what that means. Which debts do I pay off first? So that's key. That's one key thing I'm seeing in our data, just the complete lack of education of how to deal with debt. The other thing is the shift in volume as well. 60% of the data we've got, the I&E data we have, is linked pretty much to 24 to 34-year-olds. So that's a big percentage in that space. But where it's changing is the other brackets are rapidly increasing. So the younger population, so the 18 to 24, and scarily the over 75, so high debt at a high age, which is pretty sad. So there are some trends we're seeing. And the other big thing is benefits. As part of our solution, we highlight whether an individual could benefit from welfare, something they haven't maybe claimed for before. We're seeing something like 74% of cases coming through our system are not aware of what benefits they could claim for, and that comes to around £5,000 a year. So that's a big number, and that's in Wales, and that's a larger number compared to the rest of the UK. So they're the 3 trends that stand out for me over the last 18 months.
Particularly worrying about the older age groups, because it's much harder for them to understand what help's available, but to use digital offerings and also to generate extra income if they're retired.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Well, looking at personalization or sort of things more specific to regions. What can organizations do to tailor their solutions to specific needs and circumstances? Obviously, in the cost of living, maybe we can start here with Jim. Any views there?
Yeah, so the data that is available is really robust, and it gives a great baseline to be able to identify issues such as flag sets, reducing income, loss of safety net, that could be used to better help customers. I think the big thing that we need to change around the in particular consumer credit market as fintechs is getting and breaking the perception within these lenders that when customers are in trouble, well, what can you do? And it's not true. We as a firm found that we were able to double collection rates by optimizing payment dates to disposable income. And that's just one example of many that could be used to help customers, at a time that they need it the most, to keep them in and keeping them on track. We're at this massive inflection point at the moment when it comes to technology, because banks have been using AI and ML for the last 10 years, and there's nothing new there. Whereas actually, generative AI, large language models, are rapidly taking place, and they're able to crunch and consume lots more information way faster than ever before, and deliver these experiences to customers in a personalized way that speaks to them in their time of need. And as a result, I think it'll be really more effective, and it will help customers for the long term become more resilient and achieve a better financial future.
Penny, yeah.
Can I just add to that? It's our intention and our wish that financial institutions will adopt and collaborate with bankability to give those individuals the flexibility to manage their finances and avoid mental health issues, really, and sort of unlock those heavy doors that are currently firmly shut. Social impact with tech for good.
And also, I'd like to add, from my perspective, I think it would be, good to actually use the data that's available to come up with more innovative products that are specifically tailored, but are also just slightly different. I think there has to be almost like a reworking of how society views vulnerable individuals, and and to get rid of the stigma associated with that. I saw in the news, I'm based in London, so I saw in the news yesterday a lady who had a child. Both her and her husband were working, but they still had to go to food banks to get, food for their family. They had no access to credit. And where I'm coming from is that the cost of living is impacting everyday individuals in very different ways. And some people may not actually want to reach out to help because of the stigma associated with struggling and, the sort of the view that provides. So I think it would be good to not just provide personalized products, but also for society as a whole to rethink how we view vulnerability, and look at it from all facets, because yes, it's not just individuals on low incomes, it's everybody, and it's not just individuals. There's neurodiverse individuals who are also impacted. So I would say that will be a good thing to do as well.
Yeah, Dylan, anything to add? I mean, you touched on it in your previous point around specific age groups, particularly over 75s, but yeah.
I had a bit of a live example yesterday. So my daughter, she was a student. They had a debt with a broadband company. I won't name and shame the company, but I had to help her with the debt, or her household. So I spoke to the broadband company yesterday. It was a horrific experience. I was probably on the phone for 2 hours. But in the example of somebody who has multiple debts, that's a 2-hour conversation you're having with 4, 6, 8 different lenders. That's crazy. So that's what we address with iHub using technology, is to have that conversation or be able to share your data once on our platform that then empowers you to have that one conversation with all your creditors. And I guess we've touched on consumer duty. That is the focus of consumer duty, making those communications, dialogues easier with the lenders, because it's broken today.
Great stuff. Thank you very much. Yeah, well, not great stuff, tough stuff, but yeah, great example. So, I mean, thinking about some of the barriers to achieving a better world, really, and Penny, you've talked a few times about your company and your passion. You're very early stage, you're pre-revenue, pre-seed. You're building solutions for vulnerable customers. But how do you really see that helping to alleviate cost of living issues? What kind of barriers can you help to overcome with your bankability?
I think it's about finding a way to remove all the barriers, and just, again, in essence, letting the individuals choose their preferences on this unique banking app, so that if they have visual impairments, then they can hear it, voice recognition, and all the other things. And if somebody's disabled, they quite often have more than one disability. So this has to happen. We have to let people have a voice and be able to have that independence. So it's at the moment there's so much friction. If I can just add that bankability, I'll get the name in again. Once the customer has chosen their preferences, they will stick until they wish to tweak them a bit. So it's a bit like having the right spectacles to see your finances, and they can view any existing bank accounts they already have. So it's going to be a breakthrough.
Great stuff, thank you. And so Jennifer, I mean, in terms of financial institutions, what kind of barriers are they facing to doing more in your experience?
I would say one of the major barriers is probably, firstly, regulation, just the fact that in financial institutions are governed by strict regulations around what they can share, what they can't share, the data that they keep, etc. But also, I would say, at the other hand as well, maybe there are no real barriers as such. It's more just looking outside and collaborating with other institutions to try and, serve the customer better. So apart from regulation, I would say the opportunities that are there to try and be more positive is definitely collaboration, not just with large institutions, but with smaller organisations, such as these on the panel here, to try and, reach, your customers and to try and find really good solutions to serve them better. So I would say that whilst previously, access might have been an issue, it's probably not as much as an issue now. But also, I think Penny also touched on trust as well, for institutions to make sure that they always put out the fact that, customers can trust them. Because I do feel that, there's been a lot of negative press around financial institutions of what's happened in the past, 20 odd years. So definitely that needs to change. There has to be, a reworking and making sure that customers can trust institutions again. So I would say those are the two major issues, but there's definitely opportunities.
Great. Well, certainly learned a lot from the panel here today, around things like, in Wales, 60% felt that the standard of living was dropping. I think some great points around banks being, financial institutions being too reactive when it comes to identifying vulnerable customers, and the need to being more proactive. Points around changing our view on vulnerable customers, seeing them as a group of people we want to help, and really, offering them the products and services that can make a difference in their lives. So, before we move to questions from the audience, I'll maybe go through the whole panel and just kind of ask for some closing remarks, and where do you think fintech can help over the next few years, and any specific tech trends that you would call out that can help would be great. Maybe go through it, Jim.
Yeah, so one less of a tech trend, but something which is going to have a monumental impact is consumer duty. And, consumer duty isn't going to roll out overnight or be an evolution, but very much it has the potential to positively change financial services. Naturally, there will be waves of the market that will just be taken out for bad practice, and it will create kind of a better financial world for the rest of us. It will just be kind of interesting to see how that filters down to those more customers, and how that drives inclusivity for things like credit and whatnot. But yeah, I'm really excited to see how that kind of progresses out, and I think that we're in a really good place to drive kind of the direction of financial services as a country, but also that creates the drumbeat and the heartbeat for global growth as well.
For me, really, it's two things. I think it's how fintech can help educate and empower consumers. They're the two key things for me going forwards. Our business is all about sharing data. And in the market at the moment, there is a consultation paper out there. It's all around sharing data. That has to be the way forward.
From my point of view, our product is going to be a combination of fintech and AI. And in a positive way, AI will be able to help the individuals using the product to have a smoother ride, a smoother passage. It'll probably spot when somebody who's downloaded the app for the first time may not realise that they're neurodiverse, but the AI will. And so we'll try and make their journey much more pleasant.
I would say from my perspective, the institutions using technology to make things better and, decreasing the time to market for different products. Definitely, AI and ML is in there, and other new technology that's coming on board. I would say that, companies can definitely utilize that technology to better serve their customers and create products, and also reduce some of the manual overhead that comes with building products so they can get to market quicker.
Yeah, I think those are all great points. I think I'd also add generative AI is going to reduce the cost and time to serve customers greatly, hopefully providing advice and guidance at that bottom end of the market where there's a real struggle for the moment. And open banking, I think it's one of the big trends that, if individuals can quickly get their budget laid out, sent via text or email, rather than having to spend time with an agent, it just reduces the cost to serve again, and they can get much more tailored advice. But I think that's everything we were planning to ask the panel today. But any questions from the audience around fintech and the cost of living?
Hiya, I'm Stefan Evans from the Bev Foundation. So we're a Welsh think tank working on poverty and inequality. And one of the projects we're working on at the moment, funded by the Which Foundation, is looking at fintech actually, and in particular third-party apps, things like Plum, Emma, apps designed to help people improve their financial resilience, or save a bit of money. And we're quite early in that work at the moment, but from talking to people in financial inclusion, kind of, I guess, old school financial inclusion in Wales who haven't used fintech before, one of the questions that's been raised with us is, how can these apps help people in negative budget? So that's people where even when they have their benefits maxed out, even when they have all their income maxed out, that's still not enough to cover their core costs. And we're hearing from a lot of different places, Citizens Advice, quite a bit of data on this, showing that the number of people in that position is increasing. So I guess the question I have for yourselves, maybe as people involved in the fintech world, is, do you think fintech has a role to help people in those positions? Or is it a case of, actually, if we're being honest, there's not much we can do there, but there's another group in society that would benefit from the services that we offer?
It's an interesting area, and we see a lot of that. But certainly we're seeing, just from some of the stats I've shared, fintech is definitely helping those in debt. Now, yes, a lot will have a zero balance when you go through the end of the budget. We're not in the space of giving advice, but what we do is we do signposts to a whole host of different organisations. Today we released a press release regarding Scope, GamCare earlier in the week, but all debt charities. So in that situation, what we do is we hand then that individual then over to those charities or the debt charities for them then to have that informed conversation. All we're doing is making it easier for those consumers to have that conversation. So instead of them repeating all that information again, once they're with that charity or with that debt service, they can just port the information from our service over to them. So it's a one-time conversation.
If I could just say, from our point of view, we'd like to think our product will help more people from getting into debt. Perhaps our app will help people with early signs of dementia. And if they're trying to buy the same thing they've bought twice, it would say, you've already got 2 of those, you don't need another one. And also help people to manage their money so they can see easily, without having to go into their full bank account, they can see easily, I've only got £20 left this week for spends, I better just calm down a bit. So money management is another layer of what we're going to suggest, which may help.
And we ran a hackathon earlier in the year, and one of the ideas that we considered was helping to identify benefits that were available to people. So some sort of automated system that users can maybe access something that they didn't know they had, or I think those are the kinds of things that, it's not an easy one to solve, but stuff like that could be a game changer. Yeah. Any other questions? Sorry.
Yeah, that's one of the things on our system. So as I mentioned, when you go through the journey of sharing your data, we will tell you whether there are benefits you could claim for that haven't been identified. So that's a very powerful piece of the journey.
Yeah, I think that would.
I think, kind of to your point about like all these different banking apps, like I spent 2 years trying to get a personal financial management app off the ground. It was bloody hard, because the reality is this: nobody really cares about their money until something happens. They solve the problem, whichever way that might be, and then they go back to the norm. That's the reality. And I think kind of a blend of like what's being said here is, you've got to catch people at the right time and give them the options that make sense and they can consume them really simply, and then set them back off the course. And I think like what's interesting with regards to, so IE Hub is giving them the kind of the rubber stamped approval to say across to numerous lenders and not have to put them through the burden, or bankability, where you can actually give people kind of information where it's in the kind of essence of like their own, you know, disability or situation, or like what we're doing, which is saying, here's what your options are. I think that's really key. You say fintechs, I say banks, because the fintechs are ultimately the providers of the tools that are going to set these customers back on course and help the banks. But it's not the fintechs that hold the trust, it's the banks. And I think that, you know, from a signposting perspective, you know, that's where I think kind of like consumer duty is going to be really beneficial, to kind of offer fair value and to help these customers at a time of need, but getting them to make but I got one, like, I can't remember who it was. It was one of them. They told me I'd spent like $3,000 at Tesco in a year. I was like, it's just depressing. I don't need to know that. So, or the other one, which was like, it was one of these PFM tools that was saying, oh, we're going to do this like no spend Thursday. I'm like, people have to spend money. Like, so I think kind of like there is a bit of a kind of a move away of this, you know, from a PFM, which might serve these FIRE style kind of mindsets for money management, to actually just help people at their point of need, give them what they need, set them back on the right course of action, and be that, you know, that arm around the shoulder, metaphorically, that's there, that can help them on their way. And I didn't give an example for City, but I imagine you're going to give a good one now.
I mean, exactly to what Jim said as well. I mean, my perspective is that they're touching on the proactivity point as well. I think it's really important to really know your customers very well. To a certain extent, yes, there has to be products, there has to be things in place that are able to help and assist customers when they get into that situation. But realistically, I think it would be good for institutions actually to know their customers very well and to help them throughout their journey, because, you know, everybody has a life cycle in terms of their spending and issues, and some people might fall into problems at a certain point when previously it's fine. And I don't know if you've noticed, but when everything's fine, you get offered all of these products and, you know, you go into credit. But at the end of the day, is that really helping, you know, the customer? Is that the right product for them? So I think it will be useful to actually have products, or to actually for institutions to really know their customers, to offer, you know, something that does go to tailoring and personalization of that customer, that brings them along the journey. And when they do get into trouble, actually they'll know when they're going to get into trouble. If they don't get to that point, they can actually almost predict it and be like, actually, you're going on this course, we can see where it's heading, let's stop you here and, you know, provide the support that you need. So personally, I think it would be like more proactive action would be definitely a good thing to help.
Great stuff. I think we are close to running out of time. I don't know if there's any last question.
Hi, I'm Karen Smith from South Africa, the accent. I don't totally agree with the financial management. I worked for a pioneer global bank in South Africa who built their entire business model on behavioral economics. So they rewarded good financial management. In turn, the shared value that the bank got is they have the lowest credit ratios in the country. So with rewarding the management, the good financial management, they're bringing their credit rates down. So there are ways and means. The challenge in it, though, is that they are not reaching the people below the poverty line, though. So it's a worker class and higher income sort of customer base that they have. My question is, what initiatives are there to start bringing it into schools through gamification, through certain digital tools, in teaching children how to manage their finances? Because I think that is a massive gap in schooling today.
Maybe just keep it to 30 seconds.
Yeah. Our product, Bankability, although it's going to be designed with disabled people, for disabled people, the end result, I mean, it's accessible for everyone. So we'd love to get young people involved in understanding money and not being frightened by it. So we'll use simple language that everyone would hopefully choose to use.
Any other comments on that? Otherwise, we might close it there. So
can we just say thank you to EY, please, for inviting us here today?
Our pleasure. No problem at all. Thank you very much to everyone on the panel. And if anyone wants to learn more about your companies, where can they go, Jim?
Come meet me afterwards, or head to creditcanary.co.uk.
Again, come with me afterwards, or iehub.co.uk.
Bankability.app, and please sign up to be on our VIP list.
I'm on LinkedIn, or come and meet me afterwards.
Our thanks again to Alex and his panellists, and thank you to EY for sponsoring that session. That brings the premiere stage at Wales Tech Week 2023 to a close. Thank you once again to all of our speakers and our session sponsors. The Wales Tech Week closing keynote with Zoe Kleinman will begin on the headline stage at 4:30. So if you would like to make your way there now. Also, I should just tell you that the bar is open now and will remain open till 8 p.m. and the exhibition itself will remain open till 6 p.m. So please enjoy the rest of the facilities and the rest of your time here at Wales Tech Week. And finally, one more applause for Alex and his panel.